Appreciate.
Good evening, everyone. Let's go ahead and get started. Welcome to our regular meeting, Chapter City Council, Tuesday, June 18, 2019. Call to order at 7 o'clock. Roll call. All council members are present. Pledge of Allegiance will be led by Mayor Pro Tem and invocation by Esteban Ramirez. All stand.
Salute the flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Most of these invocations begin with you usually bowing your head. Today, instead of you bowing your head, I'm going to ask you to lift your head and open your eyes and look around. First, look around the room. This room has experienced many challenging debates, intellectual discourse, heated moments of tension, ideological division, success, and failure. But in this room, this is where change happens. It's where small ideas become big realities. It's more than just four walls. It's a place that brings us all together here today. Now look around the room at the people who feel it. Everybody, every single one of them, extraordinary in their own way. Yet we all seek a common good for the community. Some of you look up for guidance. Others look within yourselves. Some of you do all these things. Today, let's look to each other. We welcome you all.
Thank you. You may be seated. Again, I just want to say thank you very much for all you being here this evening and joining us. May I give the approval for the agenda?
Yes, Honorable Mayor, members of the council, we have a request to move item 7 from the management report agenda to number 1 of the management report. We'll go ahead and have the public hearing as it's published first, but then we'll consider number 7 at the beginning of the management.
Okay. And also, I would like to see if we could move number 8.
Yeah, it's council, I requested that we postpone action on number 8.
Yeah, so we would need a motion to reorder number 7 to be considered first in management reports, and to pull number 8 for later consideration.
I'll make a motion to move item number 7 from the beginning of the management reports, remove item number 8 for later consideration, and approve remaining. Second.
So we have a motion by Councilmember Gibbons, second by Councilmember Garcia. Now, may I get a motion for as corrected?
If you like it, you can do it once.
Okay.
Okay, Councilmember Gibbons?
Aye.
Lopez?
Yes.
Garcia?
Yes.
Powell? Yes. And Alvarado?
Yes.
I move we approve as amended.
Second.
Councilmember Gibbons?
Aye.
Lopez?
Yes.
Garcia?
Yes.
Powell? Yes. And Alvarado?
Yes. Okay, moving on to public comment. This portion of the meeting is open for persons that want to address the council. We're asking you to state your name, your address, and try to keep it under 5 minutes. Because there's other items on the agenda, we don't want to be here all night. So just do your best out of courtesy. If you started hearing others that you believe that they're saying the same thing, just out of courtesy, just refrain from coming up, but I'm just asking if you could. So, public comment is open. Sir?
Good evening, Mayor and the council members. Good to see you with the faces. And I know what was happening tonight, I probably wouldn't have come tonight. I didn't know it was a meeting of such importance. But I'm here because of, some of you know me, like former Mayor Kathy Cross has been to a couple of programs that we sponsored. You were invited, the whole council was invited. I'm here to let you know that I'm not going away. This will be our third one coming up in September. And what we're all about, I'm with the True Love Tribe, what we're about is bringing unity in the community, unity between citizens and the government. Until I started working with mayors, I didn't realize how hardworking they were and how sacrificial they were, sacrificing their private time, their time with their families to serve the public. And I said, we need to do something for them. And last year, we honored all the mayors in Kern County. We hosted it in Bakersfield, that's where I'm from. And many mayors came, and a couple of the Kern County supervisors attended. And this year, we want to make, one of the goals is, we want to make Kern County the best county in America. And I know it can happen because we have the best people. The only thing that we need to do is to come together and show our unity. So I'm inviting Mayor Alvarado to attend this third award banquet, where we will be honoring exemplary citizens from the cities. And I would like the mayors to choose a family or person or an individual to receive this award. We want to promote unity and respect for all people, you know, regardless of what walk of life they're in. If they're doing good service, promoting love and unity in the community, let's honor those people. Bakersfield, Kern County, these cities in Kern County, they have the best people. And I just hope that they can will attend this, and the media can broadcast it, and we can be the model for other cities. We want to promote unity in the community and unity between the people and the government. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Yes.
Sir, if you could leave your contact information with the city clerk, then she can pass that along to the mayor.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Comments still open? Come up with some comments.
Is this the comment on the entire question?
Yeah.
Justin Whitlock, here on Maple Street, Shafter, California. Honorable Mayor Gilbert, city staff, city council. I want to thank you guys for your patience regarding this issue. I know that votes like this aren't easy because they can be divisive if we let them, but they don't have to be with us. I also want you guys to know that as a citizen of Shafter, I would like to hope that our city council does reflect the hearts and minds of the majority of the people in Shafter. And that's how we won in Bakersfield. Actually, when I was in Bakersfield, there was a lot of people opposed to it, but Bakersfield still passed it. And the reason why God gave us favor in that is because the council members reflected the hearts and the minds of the people, and they voted accordingly. So I would just like to hope that tonight the vote goes that way as well. And the vote that's casted does reflect the hearts and minds of the people in Shafter. And as you guys can see, the majority of the people in this room are in favor of this. It did pass in Bakersfield. It did pass in Delano. Hopefully we can get it passed here. I just want to thank you guys for taking the time out to hear us all speak tonight. And, that's all I really have to say. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Mayor, City Council. My name is Jim Neal. I'm pastor of the First Southern Baptist Church here in Shafter, California, 250 Kern Street. And I'd like to speak to the God we trust. A plea for the unified slogan for the U.S. began very early. It began during the terrible time in our history, the bloody Civil War, a time when our country was torn and divided families, businesses, and put our young nation in a perilous time. And today we stand at such a grave, divisive time in our country. Fortunately for all of us, not yet bloody. It's just a civil war within ourselves. First, let me say that I do not intend for this to be an attempt to force any particular religion or faith on anyone, and nor is the motion before the council to do that, nor is it in any way an attempt to declare a national religion. Placing the decal in God We Trust on the cars, we know is not going to deter the criminals at all from doing their heinous acts. But it may offer a moment of peace to those people that our peace officers are sworn to protect. It also will offer as a reminder for those of us who believe in an all-powerful, ever-present Almighty God to offer a prayer every time we see that for the protection of our police officers. Finally, our police officers are an extension of our local, state, and federal governments, which already displays the national motto. And we feel that it would be right for our police officers to have that privilege to carry that decal on their rolling offices, their cars. If I could digress for just a moment in our history, this started during the Civil War by an individual in Pennsylvania who petitioned the Secretary of Treasury, Mr. Chase, to come up with a slogan. He suggested things like perilous times, perpetual country, our God, our nation. And Mr. Chase sent a message to him and says, no nation, and I quote, no nation can be strong except in the strength of God, or safe except in his defense. The trust of our people in God should be declared on our national coins. And he commissioned him to do that in just a short order. He said to do it as quickly as he could. And he came back after looking at a lot of them, and he was constricted to say, do it in the fewest words you can. He came back with "In God You Trust." In December of 1863, Congress passed it on April 22nd, 1864, on the 1 and 2 cent coins. If you can believe that, those were the major coins in America. Progressively throughout the century, up until 1957, where it was finally on all bills and all coins. We look at our history about the motto. After 9/11 in 2001, for weeks on end after that, businesses and homes, churches, and schools proudly displayed the national, brazenly even, in all places, "In God We Trust." If we look at our present day, in 2003, a joint poll by the USA Today, CNN, and the Gallup poll found that 90% of Americans approve of this slogan on the coins. Gallup did another one by itself in 2016, just asked one question: do you believe in God? 89% of Americans believed yes. 10% said no, and 1 were undecided. As early as, or as late as June 11, 2019, the New York Post reported this: the Supreme Court rejected once again an atheist case to remove "In God We Trust," the national motto, from our coins and currency from the Department of Treasury. Now, we can try to deny it, the motto. We can try to change the truth of the history of our motto with revisionist history, or we can accept it,
Excuse me,
honor
sir.
it,
Excuse me,
and
Pastor.
proudly display it.
Excuse me, Pastor, just 30 more seconds, please.
Okay. A well-spoken and chaplain of the Senate once said, "Give us a clear vision that we may know where to stand and what to stand for, because unless we stand for something, we'll fall for anything." Lastly, is it important that we do this? In '63, when they passed a ruling about mandatory prayer, it was just mandatory prayer. It has morphed into where students can't carry a Bible in some areas. Voluntary prayer of students have been thrown away. Bibles are thrown out of libraries. It is important to stand for truth and right. And I guess each one of us have to decide that individually. My choice, of course, is yes. George Orwell once said, "The further a society drifts from truth, the more it will hate those who speak for it. May the Lord richly guide you in your decision tonight. God bless you. Thank you.
Honorable Mayor, council members, Pastor Angelo Frazier, and Police Chaplain in Bakersfield, California. What an honor it is to be here today. I'm not going to repeat what both pastors have already said. They stole a little bit of the thunder. So I'll just say some of the things, because that's what pastors do. They steal each other's material. Just a brief history. 2 years ago, traveling on a mission trip, and I saw, we were down to Hurricane Harvey, took a group down there to help in the relief. And some of the first guys that met us there were deputy sheriffs in Houston. Told them I was a local pastor, bringing some teams down here to help you out because it's a national emergency. And they go, "Oh, really?" And I was like, "Yeah, oh, really, I am." So they stopped the cars in the middle of the thing. We got out and they wanted to show me something. Went around to the back of their car, and they had in big bold letters on the back of their SUVs, "In God We Trust." And I stood there for a moment. Now think about this. I'm going down there to help out in the hurricane, and I meet 2 deputy sheriffs, "In God We Trust," big bold letters. And they go, "What do you think of that?" I go, "I think that's awesome." So I took a picture of it and them and sent it back to Jackie Sullivan, who is the founder of In God We Trust Bakersfield, and helping get the In God We Trust in council chambers across the country, hundreds of them. And I said, "Hey, how about we do this for vehicles?" This was 2 years ago. So it's been a 2-year process. And last week, I also was in Bakersfield in that council, and so that council meeting saw 2 hours of just the public debate about this. And I just want to encourage you, as a council, you do have a civic duty. This is a heavy decision, but it's also historic. And so I want to thank you for your time, your diligence, your consideration of this. A number of things have already been said. I'm not going to repeat it. And just I would encourage you to vote yes on this proposition, because it is our national motto, and it is what we can, under which we can agree and disagree about. Thank you.
Thank you, Chaplain. Okay, anyone else? Before we move on. Oh, okay. Come on.
Esteban Ramirez, 9207 Shafter, 9207 Manor Forest Lane, Shafter, California. I guarantee what I say hasn't been said here already. I wanted to thank you all. I was here last time, and I really just want to thank you all for listening to me and giving me the opportunity to lend your ears. I wanted to let you know that no matter how tonight goes, even if we disagree, that's okay, because my opinions of you will not change, and I will have the utmost respect for all of you, because I know the leadership it takes for you guys to hold your positions. Over the last couple of weeks, I've heard some supporters of the Decals. They said things like, "Oh, it's going to pass in Shafter. To be so bold as to speak on your behalf." But I know better. I know that each and every one of you is in your position today for a certain reason, because nobody spoke on behalf of you. You're your own person, your own voice. You have your own strength, your own courage to be an independent thinker. That's why the citizens of Shafter trust you, and that's why they respect you. That's the kind of leadership we're looking for today. In our last meeting, social media, it was ablaze. There was a comment, and I quote, "Oh, and trust me, he," that's me, "was the only one. After he spoke, you could hear a pin drop. It was so quiet." End quote. As if that was a bad thing. Wasn't there a time in each and every one of your lives where you were the only one? The only Latino? The only woman? Was it a popularity contest? No, because it wasn't about you. Today's not about me. It's about my message. That's what today's about. I understand that for most of you, even people in the crowd, faith is very important to you. I know it serves as your guiding light, and I respect that, because I have a lot of things that I hold dear to my heart that guide me when times are tough, when times are good. But today's a government decision, and I know that the wonderful people of Shafter, they don't need the government to tell them that they trust in God. I see it right now. They already do. It's everywhere. And it's lovely. I also know that the actions of Chief Police Kevin Zimmerman and his department speak for themselves. They don't need a bumper sticker to earn our trust. They already have it. Ironically, as I've spoken here today, I feel like David with his puny sling up against Goliath and his armor. And you probably have to be a fool to vote because of one man, of what might seem up against a whole community. But I'm not here alone. After my last speech, I saw subtle smirks, subtle thumbs ups, glances. I knew I wasn't alone at that time. There were people that shared the concern that I have as well. So why don't they come up here? Where are they? Who are they? I'll tell you why. It's because what I've experienced for the majority of my life is fear. They're afraid of being targeted at work for not worshiping the same way that their boss does. They're afraid that their loved one might leave them because they don't want to go to church anymore. They're afraid that their parents might cut them off because they have doubts about how they worship. They're afraid of being rejected from you guys, from the community. They're afraid of the privilege that is often awarded to the Christian religion here in the Central Valley and the institutional resentment that is tossed at non-believers or non-Christians. Well, what am I talking about? I'll give you an example. 2 weeks ago, when we had the same talk in Bakersfield, Councilwoman Jackie Sullivan, and I quote, she said, "You ought to be ashamed," to those of us who disagree with her. I've heard this my whole life, this rhetoric. But I'm no longer afraid, and I'm no longer intimidated by people like her. Because I know that in order for you guys to represent us, you have to hear our voices. Today I'm that voice. Tomorrow somebody else will be that voice. The last time I was here, it wasn't the pledge that made me feel united. It wasn't the sign that hangs over the chambers that earned my trust. It wasn't the Christian prayer at the beginning of the meeting that made me feel welcome. It was when Mayor Alvarado asked me to help out with a meet and greet. It was making a connection with the city engineer because I knew his wife. It was the subtle smirks that I got. That's what made me feel welcome. People, not a religious slogan. Remember, today's not about winning or losing. It's about inclusion or exclusion. And I implore you all to represent us all by voting no on the decals. Thank you all for your ears and thank you all for your time.
Thank you very much. All right.
As you're preparing the writing, my name is Alejandro Angelista, 17620 Palm Avenue, Chapter. I wasn't born in the United States, but I became a citizen of this great nation because we live on freedom. Freedom of speech, like this gentleman just did it. Freedom of religion, which is important to me. Having the sign here on the police car is not imposing what you believe or what I believe to other people. It just represents the values that are endorsed by living in this city, by living in this great nation that we live in God. So I support in God with us. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Okay, all right. One more. Okay.
How's everybody doing? My name is Jimmy Garcia. I don't know what else I'm supposed to present, either my address or what, but
Your name and address.
my name and address is Jimmy Garcia, 18418 Poplar Avenue. And we've heard of multiple reasons why we should and why we shouldn't for different perspectives, but me personally, I just want to share and testify what importance it is to be not only a citizen out here in the free world, but how a symbol or an opportunity to have some kind of hope in a world where there's nothing but crime, sin, lie. I lived in a California state institution for 8 years and 7 months. And the symbolism of our nation's motto inside of California prison institution gives people like myself an opportunity to reform, to decriminalize, and to rehabilitate. I've gotten out of prison in 2010 and I'm doing a lot of things because of the opportunity that people that have a belief and a hope. And I've also avoided because of other people that don't have belief, faith, and hope. But, you know, as a citizen of Shafter and a future worker of our community, I support that Shafter should have the decal on their cars, only for the purpose of personal belief, personal faith, opportunity, and hope. We never know when somebody's walking by and they might be hurting. I work with a population of hurt people. I'm in recovery and reform. And it just takes sometimes a simple wording, a simple sign that changes a person's mind, intent. Some people that are trying to commit suicide, some people that are trying to go and commit a crime. So, as a resident of Shafter, I respect everybody's belief. I respect everybody's hope. I respect everybody's trust. But as our city council, you know, I mean, I would ask and respect the model that has upheld our nation, and that you as city councils have also sworn to help us, you know what I mean, have a better city and have a better community. So with that, you know, no disrespect to anybody, but I trusted in God, and He's put me in places right now where I've never thought I would be, you know. So with that said, I just ask that you guys just think about, you know what I mean, the future of those that are seeking for hope, those that are looking for a way. And sometimes it just takes a simple word to make it or break it, you know. So in God we trust. I do trust. Amen.
Hallelujah. Thank you very much. All right. Amy, this might be the last one with this one topic.
My name is Luke Reed. I'm here on behalf of Team Challenge. I live currently in 650 Shafter, Riverside Street. So I just wanted to bring up the fact that I respect every single one of you. I may not come from your city, but I've seen how much love and the resonance of just the community here, because I've worked in a lot of places that have faith and belief. And in my childhood, I grew up with a strong belief in Christ. I grew up with my father. He taught me to love Him and be in religion and Catholicism before I knew what it was. And I went into STEM Academy too. So I learned a lot of science. And I just wanted to say that, yes, both beliefs have their own opinion and they can be shared. And when I was a child, I was taught that evolution was a fact, even though it was a theory by many teachers. And I respected them, and I never rose up against them and told them that they could not teach me evolution. So I just wanted to state the fact that this is still going on, that we have a simple bumper sticker that we would like to place on a police car, that at a time in my life, I didn't have any respect for authority. And when I found Christ again, I read a verse that said we must obey the governing authorities, for God placed them. And, you know, you may not have to believe in that, and you can have your own beliefs, but it brought me back from a place where I was stuck in crime, and I believed that our government was against us, and Christ, in my belief, in my faith, brought me back to believe that humanity was for us because God put them for us. But when I believed in science, I became nihilistic, and I respect both beliefs because I've been on both sides, and both sides of the spectrum at an extreme. So I just wanted to say to you guys that for a teacher to teach evolution is the same as for a simple bumper sticker to put upon a police officer's truck. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now, before we move on, is there anybody here that likes to address a council that has nothing to do with the decal? Okay, so everybody pretty much is here for the decal. Okay. So, are we pretty much good? Other comments? Okay. Public comments is going to be closed, unless I see someone else. Seeing none, public comments is closed. All right, moving on to the consent calendar. All items on the consent calendar is considered routine and non-controversial by staff and will be approved by one motion. And may I get a motion, please?
Make a motion to approve consent calendar as read.
Second. We have a motion by Councilmember Givens and second by Mayor Pro Tem Lopez.
Councilmember Givens?
Aye.
Lopez?
Yes.
Garcia?
Yes.
Crowe? Yes. And Alvarado?
Yes. Moving on to council announcements and reports. Councilmember Givens.
None.
Councilmember Proud.
Yes, I do have some.
Okay.
The first item that I'd like to mention is that we've had some oath of offices in City Hall, and I've been able to attend for our facility construction oath of office for Marcial Mascaro. And good guy, good position, and we welcome him. Also, we have a new person at the Finance Department, Jessica Gonzalez, and she's going to be our new clerk. Also attended January the 10th, the Mayor's and City Managers meeting. And what's good about that is all cities come together at one time, and we are finalizing the mutual aid agreement, which is really a good thing for all cities and as well as Kern County to be together whenever there's some emergency or event that takes place, that we can all be together and support each other. Okay, also, they talked about the public alert and warning system, and it's called Public Alert and Warning System, which is really important that we all get on board with that so that they can be contacted whenever there is an issue that comes up. And also an announcement that if you missed it, with PG&E, it's important that we somehow understand the seriousness of fires and when the fact that they're going to have to cut power, that we need to be prepared about the safety as well as the fact of how to deal with power that could be off for more than one day, up to a week or so. If you haven't already checked it out, you can get online and pgne.com and you can find where they have wildfire safety information so that you're ready for it. Okay, also, we had a steering committee that I serve on with staff members too. And the steering committee has to do with AB 617, which is community air monitoring. And it's something that's being mandated, and Shafter has been picked as one of the cities that will be studied, and money should become available that will help us to mitigate and to deal with some of the problems that we have in our air pollution. On June the 12th, a couple of us did attend the MAD. MAD is Mothers Against Drunk Drivers, and recognize people in law enforcement and our prosecutors that we are not going to sit by and not cite and deal with DUIs. And we had 3 officers from our own local PD that were recognized: Officer William Drucker, Eric Diaz, and Janet Fernandez. And it was really an honor to be there and to see others in the county as well as CHP and give them a support and congratulate them. Also, on that same day, I was able to attend a community task force meeting, which is usually held with Pastor Cloyle, and he was out of town, and all of us should try to go to one of those meetings. We have people that are there that represent all areas of the Shafter area, not just clubs and churches, but city departments and recreation was there. They tell about local events. They tell about what their agencies are doing, and if you aren't aware, then you can participate, or at least you can be able to tell others about what's going on in Shafter. Okay, also, several of us attended the Kern Economic Development Annual Dinner, and we have an opportunity to network. We network with business people, with the sponsors that help put it on, and other elected city and county people. Also, last night, we had an environmental justice element for our general plan, which is another mandated state law that has requirements that we engage our local people. We are looking to improve air quality. We're looking at health issues, health care with healthy foods, and recreation for everybody in the community, as well as to improve our public facilities so that we're all together on that. I believe that's all I have at this time.
Thank you very much. Councilmember Garcia.
Nothing at this time.
Mayor Pro Tem Lopez.
I got nothing.
I'm gonna say something that Kenny didn't say. Happy late Father's Day to all the men. Also, I did also attend the MAD ceremony, and I'd like to see if we could bring them to council and acknowledge them here in our own city, And I'd like to see if we could get a plaque. So do I need to get a consensus on that, Manager?
Yeah, we could put that on the next agenda and work with the police chief to provide some sort of a recognition.
Okay, I'd like to see if we get a plaque.
A group plaque or
No,
individual?
an individual plaque.
Individual.
There's 3 members that got awarded in Bakersfield. And I'd like to see if we could just give them a plaque from our city, they serve.
Sure.
Okay, that's all I have, and we're gonna go ahead and move on to manager's report.
Yes, Honorable Mayor, members of the Shafter City Council, a few upcoming items. Of course, beginning tomorrow, we have the League of Cities, Mayors and Council Members Executive Forum. A couple of you signed up for that. Coming on Thursday, the 20th, the KernCog meeting in Bakersfield in the evening. Monday, June 24th is the next AB 617 meeting that Councilmember Prout mentioned. That's held at the Shafter Veterans Hall at 5:30, and the public is, of course, welcome for that. July 2nd will be the Shafter Learning Center's 5th birthday celebration. This is also open to the public, and I'm sure there'll be announcements on the Learning Center's website, but that begins at 6 p.m. and basically just a recognition for the anniversary. July 3rd, of course, is the traditional City of Shafter fireworks celebration hosted by the Chamber of Commerce, and that begins over at Shafter High about 6 p.m. July 4th, City Hall will be closed, and Monday, July 8th, another AB 617 meeting at the Veterans Hall, and then finally the next Mayors and Managers meeting mentioned by Councilmember Prout will take place on July 15th, 11:30 a.m. And that's all I have.
Okay, thank you very much. We're going to go ahead and move on to public hearing. Number 1 item on there is East Shafter franchise hauling rate adjustment.
Yes, Honorable Mayor, members of the Shafter City Council, a few years ago, the city awarded waste hauling franchises to both American Refuse and Bronner Brothers to service East Shafter. And East Shafter is just basically everything outside the core city where we're at. So the arrangement basically has American mostly servicing all of the commercial accounts at Minter Field and the wonderful industrial park, and the Bronner Brothers servicing the residential accounts in Gossamer Grove. So the agreements for both haulers basically have the same rates in their and the same methodology for justifying rate increases, which is basically tied to a formula that was also in a separate county agreement that the county uses with the same haulers for areas just outside Shafter. So the city and the haulers have recently confirmed using that formula that a rate increase of 4.7% is justified, and it should go into effect as early as July 1st or next fiscal year. And the county recently approved a similar rate increase for their hauling agreement. So, so in order for the city to formally approve the rate increase, we need to conduct a public hearing, and then at the close of the public hearing, consider adoption of a resolution that orders or formally approves the rate increase. Now, this isn't a protest hearing where, you know, we're obligated to send 45-day notice of the hearing to the affected customers and then consider a written protest against the rate increase. We've already had that protest when we approved the waste hauling agreements. So we're using a methodology that's been pre-approved by the council to justify rate increases. And so this is a formality. We did publish notice of the public hearing in the Shafter Press, and we are working to send notice to the affected customers about the pending rate increase. But this is a formality we have to go through. It's been properly noticed, and the proposed rates are included in Resolution 2653. So with that, we're requesting that you conduct a hearing, and at the close of the hearing, consider approval of the proposed rates.
Okay, thank you very much. Chapter franchise hauling rate adjustment. It's open. Anyone wish to come up to speak for or against? Seeing none, public hearing is closed. Council?
Questions?
I move that council find proposed activity is exempt from the California Environmental Quality Act and adopt resolution number 2653. A resolution of the City Council of the City of Shafter approving an adjustment to the city's solid waste collection, recycling, and disposal rates.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Councilmember Prout, second by Councilmember Givens.
Councilmember Givens?
Aye.
Lopez?
Yes.
Garcia?
Yes.
Prout?
Yes.
And Alvarado?
Yes. Moving on to manager's report number 1, which is now In God We Trust, police vehicle decal.
Yes, Honorable Mayor, and move to number 8 here. 7 rather. Honorable Mayor and members of the Shafter City Council, at the May 21st, 2019 meeting, a proposal to place the On God We Trust decals on Shafter Police Department vehicles was made, presented by Pastor Medlock. And at the June 4th meeting, the council directed staff to bring this item back for discussion and a vote tonight. Number of citizens have expressed their feelings both at those previous meetings and tonight. And so the item before you this evening is to continue that discussion with the council and find, if it is to be approved, the council find the action is exempt from CEQA and provide direction to staff on the implementation or lack thereof to move forward. Happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from council?
I just want to get some formalities out, just to make sure I'm on the same page. Pastor Medlock.
Yes.
The decals are no cost to the city, provided by, I would assume we direct them your way.
Well, I was gonna raise the money myself, but the gentleman that makes the stickers found out why we were doing them, and he offered to do them for free. So it will be at no cost to the city at all.
Any other question from council? Okay. May I get a vote? Motion?
I'll make a motion to find the action is exempt from CEQA and direct staff to work with Justin Medlock, Pastor Medlock, and Chief Zimmerman to install decals at no cost to the city of Shafter on specific vehicles and sizes that work for specified vehicles based on Chief's requirements.
Okay, may I get a second?
I'll second.
So we have a motion by Councilmember Givens and a second by Councilmember Prout.
Councilmember Givens?
Aye.
Lopez?
Yes.
Garcia?
Yes.
Prout?
Yes.
And Alvarado?
Yes. Okay, moving on to item number. That's right. 2, right? One.
Good job.
We're going to go ahead and move on to the appropriation limit for the fiscal year of 2019-2020, consistent with the Article 8 of the California Constitution. The annual adjustment factor.
Bunch of selfish motherfuckers here.
Thank you, guys.
This is the number. I haven't seen you.
Oh, you're here.
Thank you for coming.
Oh, yeah.
please.
Okay, let's get back to our meeting here. Number 2, appropriation limit for fiscal year 2019-2020, consistent with the Article A and B for the California Constitution and election annual adjustment factor.
Yes, Honorable Mayor, members of the Council, this is an annual calculation that is done pursuant to Article 13B of the California Constitution, as instituted in 1979. Also known as the GAM limit. So this is an appropriations limit meant to limit really the growth and expenditures of public entities from tax expenditures, I should say, public entities. So this is a formula that the city calculates every year. It's based on 2 different factors, and there's 2 options in each factor. And so what it does is it takes the prior year's appropriations limit and it grows by a factor for both population and inflation. You get to pick which formula we use. And so when applying the population factor, we can select from the percentage change in the city population or the percentage change in the county population. In this case, the percentage change in the city population is greater. The city's population, according to the Department of Finance, increased by 4.37% last year, whereas the county's population increased by 1.5%. So we're recommending that you would select the change in city's population. So the intention there is that as the city grows, more tax revenues are needed in order to support the operations, or can be used, I should say, in order to support the operations of the city. The second factor is the inflation factor, and there's two choices again. There's the percentage change in California per capita personal income, or the change in local assessment roll, so the local assessed valuation change, due to the addition of non-residential new construction. Shafter, we will again recommend taking the larger of the 2. In this case, it's the second. It's the change in local assessed valuation from non-residential new construction. And the reason why that's beneficial for Shafter is when we have large industrial projects, like we see down in the industrial park, that have a significant change in our total assessed valuation, it really does become a pretty substantial factor when applying it to the change. So in this case, for example, the change in per capita personal income is 3.85%, so that's an inflationary factor statewide. Our local change in assessed valuation from non-residential new construction, so not homes but everything else that's new, is about 20.15%. So it's pretty significant. So we're recommending that this year that the council select the change in the city population as the population factor, and that you select the change in local assessment roll due to the addition of non-residential new construction as the inflationary factor, and that you adopt the resulting appropriations limit, which is $286,931,642. That's not how much money we're proposing you spend or how much money we even have to spend. That's simply the legal limit on how much tax revenue you could receive and spend according to the calculation. So I'd be happy to answer any questions. And there is included in your staff report is a calculation going back to 1999, 2000, rolling this calculation forward each year. I'll add that my calculation is also reviewed by your independent auditors. And so you'll actually get another report when we bring the audited financial statements back to you for approval that reviews these calculations and would note any discrepancies in those calculations too. But for the case of adopting the budget, which is the next item on your agenda, you should, in conjunction with that, adopt the applicable appropriations.
4.27% increase in population. That's the 4th highest in the last 20 years.
So yes, and it's very high statewide, which is, I read an article this morning talking about the growth of smaller communities because of, one, the housing crisis nationally, as well as just the cost for housing in general, pushing people out to more rural areas. I think in our case, the proximity to Bakersfield helps as well. But we are in the top 10 statewide, and we have been for the past 4 or 5 years as far as percentage change in population. So the community is growing fairly rapidly.
Anyone else? So the funding from that's collected is added to the general fund?
No, so it doesn't actually collect any funds.
Okay.
All it does is it limits how much you can collect. So it's a limit. If we were to collect more than that, then you have a couple options on what to do with that. But it's not, that won't happen. That number is much larger than our tax base.
And the census doesn't play a role in this, or would it?
The census will play a role in the sense that the Department of Finance, who issues our population estimates each year, the California State Department of Finance, updates that with the outcome of the census. And so when we get a new census, that number will be factored into our population change at that point, and then be the new basis going forward that we're calculating. So yeah, it does, and it does have some impact.
All right, thank you. All right.
I make a recommendation that council find proposed activity is not subject to CEQA and adopt resolution 2654, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Shafter, California, setting forth an appropriations limit for fiscal year 2019 and 2020, consistent with Article 13B of the California Constitution, selecting the annual adjustment factors. Are we going to state them, or can we just do it based on your recommendation?
They're stated in the resolution, so
Okay.
you got the resolution.
Stated within the resolution.
Okay, we have a motion by Councilmember Gibbons, a second by Mayor Pro Tem Lopez.
Councilmember Gibbons?
Aye.
Lopez?
Yes.
Garcia?
Yes.
Powell? Yes. And Alvarado?
Yes, moving on to number 3 is the 2019-2020 draft annual budget and capital improvement plan.
Yes, Honorable Mayor, members of the Shafter City Council, you've been, you're in receipt of a copy of the final draft version of the budget. We do have at least one copy available for the public if anyone hasn't seen it and would like to. This is the outcome of 5 different community led workshops. So we had 2 strategic planning workshops and then 3 independent budget workshops where all of that input was factored into this final draft budget. The final draft budget only varies slightly from the last workshop, which was held on May 14th. And those changes include the following. We did have some updates for payroll-related changes that were implemented after the last draft, just to make it more current. And so we had all of the current raises, for example, or reclassifications were included. We had updates for capital improvement project budgets based on current bids and other new information. So anything that came to light between May 14th and when this draft budget was prepared by the 31st, those have all been factored in. So any new bid results, any new engineer's estimates need to be included. Third, we had several non-financial changes. So we had just cleaning up any typos, updating graphs, cleaning up just the document and how it's presented, department descriptions, titles, several job title descriptions, no reclassifications or dollar impacts, just correcting the document to be in line with what's currently approved and in place. And then finally, pursuant to City Council direction provided on May 21st, the education partnership budget is fixed at $870,780. And that was the amount that was included in the original draft of the budget, which was presented to the council. So those were the only changes that were made between the last draft and the final draft. Revenues citywide are projected at $66.12 million. Operating expenses citywide are proposed at $42.77 million, with an additional amount of $23.57 million being budgeted for capital improvements and special projects. So the net results for the city are a budgeted use of fund balance of about $0.22 million and a projected ending fund balance of $64.59 million. So that is total citywide. That is all of the utility funds, the general fund, all of the funds that are budgeted for and managed by the city. So that's the big picture. Let's see, as far as staffing is concerned, the staffing has two increases in full-time equivalents or FTEs. We have an administrative assistant 1 position that's included. That's an addition will be located over at the new public works facility. And then a full-time transit driver position, which is reclassifying part-time positions into one full-time position. Additionally, there were a few reclassifications included in information technologies, facility maintenance, admin services, and the city clerk's department, but nothing that wasn't already presented in the prior draft versions of the budget. General fund revenues total $34.06 million. So general fund, that is the main operating fund for the city, and it covers all of the general expenditures, including planning, community development. It includes fire and police services, animal control, all of those critical services. Really all major services except for special revenues, which are typically for capital improvement projects, and enterprise funds. So it doesn't include your water, wastewater, and refuse operations. The general fund revenues total $34.06 million, including $5.11 million in one-time revenues from the sale of property, and operating expenditures of $16.89 million, with an additional $8.83 million in capital projects, $8.45 million in developer agreements, and $0.11 million net transfers in, transfers out, net transfer in. The result of that is a balanced general fund. So in the staff report, it says a net surplus of $866. That's not a typo, it's effectively zero. It's a balanced budget. In addition, when we compare the reoccurring revenues to reoccurring expenditures for the general fund, and that's an exercise that we do every year and during the year to ensure that the general fund is balanced and sustainable on a long-term basis, we remove one-time revenue sources and one-time capital expenditures or other one-time expenditures. When we prepared that analysis based on this budget, the general fund has a surplus of $0.96 million, so almost $1 million surplus on an annual reoccurring basis. So that's a good thing. It shows that we've got some room there in case there is a downturn or a slowdown in the economy. It also will result in an increase in fund balance if that comes to fruition, which can be used for other priorities of the city council going forward. So that's a good position to be in. Other than that, I will say that revenues for the most part, well, for all parts, are conservatively projected. As usual, we base them on things that are actually occurring in the city currently, and not things that could be coming, the things that we know about. And I will just comment that the capital appropriations in the capital improvement program section of the budget, just a reminder that unlike operational budgets, those budgets don't lapse at the end of the year. So any capital project that has a remaining budget at the end of this fiscal year that isn't completed, the unspent budget does roll over to the next fiscal year, and so those projects will continue, and that budget will continue between the two fiscal years. All of the other budgets at the end of this fiscal year will be zeroed out, closed out, and start with a fresh new budget for operations going forward. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions that the council has.
Any questions from council?
As usual, great job. So much put together. And I have seen a lot of finances. That is incredible what you're able to put together and do every year. Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome. It's not, I'm just the person that puts it all together. So Mike and his
Till
crew, and the
for
rest,
all of
David, and all of the departments, the chief, all of the departments have their part. We put it all together.
Thank you.
Anyone else? I just want to echo that as well. Just overseeing it, making sure it all goes together. Good job. Thank you. Okay, may I get a motion, please?
I make a motion that council find a proposed activity is not subject to CEQA and adopt resolution 2655, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Shasta, California, approving and adopting the annual operating budget and capital improvement plan for fiscal year 2019-2020 and appropriating the funds necessary to meet the expenditures set forth therein.
Second.
So we have a motion by Councilmember Givens and second by Councilmember Garcia.
Councilmember Givens?
Aye.
Lopez?
Yes.
Garcia?
Yes.
Kraus? And Alvarado?
Yes. And moving on to number 4, water meter reading program update.
Yes, Honorable Mayor, members of the Shaft City Council, Public Works would like to modernize the water meter technology that's currently used. Specifically, we'd like to switch from the drive-by system which consists of a Public Works official and a handheld device going throughout the service areas and collecting a block at a time with a handheld device and taking all the data collected and uploading it into the finance billing software with a centrally located radio tower that can communicate with all the meters from one spot, ideally City Hall, where the finance department is based. So we reached out to our routine supplier of water meter reading technology, National Meter and Automation, and they quoted us the radio infrastructure plus installation valued at $78,000, the annual service and maintenance fees valued at $12,000 approximately, and optional support services once all of this infrastructure is installed. So it's important to point out that this transition to a central meter reading system won't happen overnight. So there will be some drive-by accounts that we continue to use, but ultimately having a fully, we call it a AMI system, a central location to read meters, and it obviously reduces the use of public works crews, and it allows us to more readily detect leaks and tampering with an individual account. And we can assist the customer with time of use data, which gives them information and makes them more likely that they can conserve ultimately. So, and fortunately, the cost to develop this and maintain it have already been factored into our water enterprise capital improvement program and operations fund. So with that tonight, we're requesting authorization to proceed with the upgraded meter reading technology.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from council?
You say the word optional, 39,730. It is optional, meaning you're not.
Very, very unlikely to use it, but it's there if we need it.
Okay, so $78,000 upfront to get it going, and then $12,600 every year thereafter, with a small chance of going into that $39,730. But you have it budgeted in case.
That's correct.
Okay.
And I should point out with the service fees, I mean, we already pay routine annual service fees. That this is probably just an increase to factor in the additional technology that we're supporting. So we're pretty accustomed to paying service fees already.
Rough estimate on when you think you'd have this installed upon approval?
6 months.
No other questions?
Any other questions? I just have one quick one. It says potential leaks on the customer side of the meter. Are you talking just right on the other side, or is it for like a 10
Well,
feet,
if it's
12 feet?
detecting use like at 2 a.m., then likely there is a leak or something that the customer's not aware of, and then we can alert them of that issue. And so they can, fix it and reduce their bill after that point.
Like a running toilet or something?
Absolutely.
Okay, oh, that's good, that's good,
Yeah,
okay.
right there.
All right, thank you very much for that. May I get a motion, please?
Make a motion that council find action as exempt from CEQA to approve a cost proposal submitted by National Meter and Automation covering water meter reading infrastructure in the amount of $78,000, annual maintenance fees in the amount of $12,600, and optional installation services in the amount of $39,730, and authorize the Public Works Director to award some or all of the aforementioned infrastructure and services outlined in said proposal.
So we have a motion by Councilmember Givens and second by Mayor Pro Tem Lopez.
Councilmember Givens?
Aye.
Lopez?
Yes.
Garcia?
Yes.
Kraus? Yes. And Alvarado?
Yes. Moving on to number 5, Pine Street Water Main Relocation and Meter Installation.
Yes, Honorable Mayor, members of the Shaft City Council, as I'm sure you're aware, the council previously awarded a construction project that will improve Pine Street, Munzer, and miscellaneous alleys. And residents impacted by this project on Pine Street, 6 to be exact, are served by a city water main that's actually in their backyards. They don't have an alleyway for city crews to access the water line if something were to go wrong or if we needed to install meters. So we'd like to take advantage of this opportunity to install, and I should point out the existing water main is 50+ years old, so it's probably in need of replacing anyway. So we have a unique opportunity that we'd like to take advantage of, where we could relocate the water main to the more appropriate location in the street, install that pipeline before the street project commences, so we can avoid having to go into the street after the street's been overlaid and then have to open cut it and kind of undo what the street project just did. So we have we've obtained quotes, material quotes from Ferguson Water Works valued at approximately $7,000, and we've also obtained a quote from DM Pipeline to support our crews with the installation of the water main and the meters. So we're looking at roughly $22,000 in costs, and suggesting a budget of $25,000 at this point, which can be covered by our water capital improvement program and our water operations accounts. But it's important to point out that the work being discussed tonight doesn't automatically switch the affected customers over right away. It just gets the water main in the street, out of the way, so we can continue the street work, and then our crews will have to work with the affected customers to find the best way to relocate the water service to the new service connection. So either way, we're covered. Even with the additional work, we're covered with the existing budgets that we have. So with that, we're requesting authorization to proceed with the Pine Street water main relocation.
Thank you. Any questions from council?
Is this Pine Street that affects between Pine and Oak?
It is just north of State, between the Baptist Church and State. There's 6 lots.
There's just one half a block really.
I know where it is now.
Yeah.
Thank you.
May I get a motion?
I'll make a motion, council find action is exempt from CEQA, approved cost proposal submitted by Jane Pipeline Construction in the amount of $14,800 for contracted labor services. Approve a cost proposal submitted by Ferguson Water Works for water pipeline materials in the amount of $6,654, and authorize public works director to award the said contracted labor and water pipeline materials purchase for a combined amount of up to $25,000.
Second.
We have a motion by by Mayor Pro Tem Lopez, second by Councilmember Gibbons.
Councilmember Gibbons?
Aye.
Lopez?
Yes.
Garcia?
Yes.
Crouch? And Alvarado?
Yes, going on to number 6, North Park Shafter, North Shafter Street Improvement Surveying Service Request for Proposal.
Yes, Honorable Mayor, members of the Shafter City Council, at your June 4th meeting, the council was made aware of the need for street improvements within the North Park and North Shafter communities. I believe residents and project advocates were addressing the council at the time. Some of the residents are here with us tonight as well, and they've been talking to staff regularly about the need for essential street improvements within their communities, including curb gutter, sidewalks, streetlights, potentially a sound wall and other improvements. But before we, the city, can address the feasibility of constructing these improvements, we think it's critical that a topographic survey of the existing streets and buildings be conducted. And a topographic survey is just basically using a land survey to document where the parcel lines are, what the elevations of the existing streets and building pads are, just so we could, logically develop engineering improvements, estimate what those improvements might cost, and prepare future city budgets to ultimately build those improvements. So, and I think it's important to point out that the survey work needs to include Highway 43, because that's just the main traffic street artery between these communities and, of course, City of Aurora. So staff is proposing tonight to release a request for proposals from licensed surveyors to conduct the recommended topographic study. We're anticipating that this RFP will take a couple of months to complete and bring an update to you, and likely a recommendation for a professional services agreement. The preliminary estimate for this work is $50,000. Just depends on what the surveyors ultimately recommend for their time and their expertise. But we'll very likely see something in the neighborhood of $50,000, and we're not recommending any expenditures tonight. We'll likely take the proposals, have a budget for you then. It's likely that we'll have access to street capital improvement program funds to proceed with the work with that as budget action. So, but we need to conduct this RFP and seek proposals and review them, and ultimately recommend one to move forward with. So with that, we're requesting authorization to proceed with the RFP. And there are the residents in attendance if you have any questions for them.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from council?
No.
That study will bring forth cost estimates along with the study?
For the study is for the actual work.
No, if they identify something in advance. I mean, they're gonna have a planning part of it, but they also could have cost estimates.
Not for the construction of improvements.
They're
just
just
for the services.
they're providing data for our engineers and other people to work with and ultimately develop that at a different time.
So it won't all frozen.
Right.
Any questions?
My name is Rosa Rascon, I live in Fort recently. I do have a question about the surveyors. Is that gonna be part of the whole improvement of that area, correct? Okay, so the part of my concern is the safety issue with the speed, and that still hasn't been installed with the